What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, former unified welterweight world champion superstar boxer Keith one-time Thurman, who is now 30 wins, 1 loss, no draw, 22 wins by way of knockout. He is 33 years of age, 5'7", 5'8", with a 69-inch arm reach. With that said, Keith Thurman, he weighs in and gives his breakdown of what took place last Saturday night when newly crowned 3-belt unified welterweight world champion superstar boxer, who is widely considered by many to be top 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, and Errol the True Spence Jr., who is now 28 wins, no losses, no draws, 22 big wins by way of knockout. He is 32 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. He took on former WBA welterweight world champion Cuban star boxer Yordenis Ugas, and he won via 10th round stoppage, breaking Yordenis Ugas' right orbital bone, breaking his jaw, and breaking his ribs reportedly. With that said, he became a 3-belt holder. It got us closer to the biggest fight in the sport of boxing, the fight that everybody's been clamoring for and eager to see, between Errol Spence Jr. and undefeated 3-division world champion, former undisputed junior welterweight world champion, currently the reigning WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terence Crawford. Okay, Terence Crawford is 38 wins, no loss, no draw, 29 big wins by way of knockout. He is 34 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. So it got us closer. After Errol Spence, he defeated Yordenis Ugas. It got us closer to the fight that we all want to see, and that's Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. There was reports now that Terence Crawford could possibly sign a deal with the PBC, Premier Boxing Champion, founder and advisor Al Heyman, to be able to stage this fight after Terence Crawford has parted ways from longtime promoter, legendary promoter, Top Rank CEO Bob Arum, ESPN, and Top Rank. He is now a free agent. So with that said, Terence Crawford, Errol Spence, that seemed to be the huge roadblock preventing that fight from happening. But after his November 20th, 2021 showdown with two-time welterweight world champion superstar boxer Showtime Shawn Porter, in which he did something and stopped Shawn Porter in a manner he's never been stopped, or took a loss, should I say, in the 10th round, dropping him twice and forcing his father, trainer, and manager Kenny Porter to wave the white towel. With that said, he's a free agent now. So there was reports that he could possibly sign a 2-fight deal to fight Keith Thurman in July. Keith Thurman made his ring return February 5th against Mario Barrios, and it was looking like we're going to get Terence Crawford versus Keith Thurman in July. But Keith Thurman, he clarified and said Terence Crawford wants to go straight away right into a fight with Errol Spence. That's his prerogative. He said he would think that he would want to have, a tuna fight, another fight in between that before going into such a big fight. Not that Keith Thurman represents a tuna fight, but, that he will want to get another fight in, stay busy, and stay active. Terence Crawford has fought twice since 2019, okay? Since his last 2 fights in 2019, he's only fought twice since that time, okay? And so with that said, he's 34, he'll be 35, and it looks like Keith Thurman, he let it be known that this fight looks like it's going to take place in September, okay? So he stated that, he gave his breakdown prediction in the fight. He said that I can promise you this, me versus Terence Crawford will be much more exciting than Errol Spence was against Yordenis Ugas. Not on Errol Spence's part, but Yordenis Ugas' part, because when you have a finisher, aggressive fighter like Errol Spence, if you don't have enough to keep him off you or to keep him active, to keep him busy, or make him pause, then he's going to continue to come through and railroad right over you. So Keith Thurman, he stated that, he figured that was going to be the case after a certain point in time in the fight. So Keith Thurman, he said that it would be an exciting fight of the year type of fight between me and Terence Crawford, but I understand Terence Crawford wanting to go right into the fight with Errol Spence, and it looked like September is going to be the date. So with that said, Keith Thurman, he stated that he may just have to fight. Get this, undefeated, rising welterweight superstar title contender JARON Boots Ennis, who is 28 wins, no losses, no draw, 26 big wins by way of knockout, 24 years of age, 5'10" with a 74-inch arm reach. JARON Boots Ennis is going into a fight May 14th, he's the co-main event against Custio Clayton for the IBF, International Boxing Federation mandatory position, which means he'll be the mandatory challenger for Errol Spence, Terence Crawford winner. But it's expected for either which one of those guys who win the fight to move up to junior middleweight to 154 and look to challenge, the undisputed. Oddly enough, the main event for JARON, Ennis, and Custio Clayton is Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castano in a highly anticipated junior middleweight undisputed rematch. The first fight ended in a draw. So the winner of that fight more than likely is going to look to move up. Now it's going to be harder to make Errol Spence beat Terence Crawford because of his relationship and Jermell Charlo being a stablemate should Jermell Charlo win the fight. But if Brian Castano win, it makes it easier for Errol Spence. But in the case of Terence Crawford, he's already on record stating that after he knocks out Errol Spence, he's going right into the junior middleweight division to look to challenge Jermell Charlo. Said, I'm going to knock him out too. So either which way, the winner of this fight is going to vacate the belt. So it looks like JARON Ennis is not going to fight the winner of this fight, but he will be in position. He just signed a recent multi-fight deal with Showdown Boxing president of sports, Steven Espinosa, announced it. So it looks like we could possibly see JARON Boots Ennis versus Keith Thurman. And don't be surprised to see JARON Boots Ennis versus Keith Thurman as the co-main event to Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford in September. That would be huge, okay? So with that said, Keith Thurman, he broke down the fight. He said that Errol Spence Jr. is just too big, too relentless. He has a volume and a work pace that he don't believe Terence Crawford is able to sustain. He said, if you can't sustain and keep up the pace that Errol Spence is going to set, then you are going to be in trouble. And 9 times out of 10, you are going to lose. So he says that, Errol Spence, he pushes the pace for a reason. He understands, this is what Keith Thurman had to say. He understands what the judges are looking for. He understands what it takes to win fights. He understands that they like to favor the aggressor. Regardless if you're getting hit, they still like to favor the aggressor, okay? So he stated that, in this case, Errol Spence is going to be the aggressor. He said when he watched the fight with Sean Porter and Terence Crawford, in that fight, he stated that Sean Porter, was the aggressor in the fight, and Terence Crawford was very reserved. He was very conservative. So he stated that with him being conservative against Sean Porter, he imagines that he's going to be reserved when he fight against Errol Spence Jr. And he stated that, he was very crafty. He said he nicknamed him Crafty Crawford because he was so crafty with his approach. He was setting up Sean Porter to be knocked out. So he stated that when Sean Porter, continued to repeat the same cycle over and over again, Terence Crawford was able to gauge what Sean Porter was doing, the speed of Sean Porter. He said Sean Porter wasn't mixing it up, and he stated that Sean Porter wasn't the same fighter. He was completely not the same fighter that fought Errol Spence himself and Yadena Sugas. He said that, it just wasn't the same Sean Porter that everybody else fought. So Keith Thurman, he said that. So eventually he got what Sean Porter was trying to do. He gauged the timing, he gauged the distance, and he clipped Sean Porter and knocked Sean Porter out. Well, he's got to stop it. He dropped him twice, and Kenny Porter saw enough. Kenny Porter, he stated that Sean Porter wasn't preparing for the fight like he should have, and this was the result. So Keith Thurman, he stated that, after he watched the fight, Keith Thurman stated that Terence Crawford is very crafty, very skilled, but he's, at the end of the day, a boxer that has power. And then Keith Thurman, he stated, yes, he's knocked out and stopped his last 9 opponents, but those were all C-level fighters, okay? He said those are not guys on the level of Errol Spence. Errol Spence's aggression, Errol Spence's work pace, okay? His load, he said, is going to be too much for Terence Crawford, and he sees Errol Spence stopping Terence Crawford, okay? He said that he sees that Errol Spence is a closer. He's great at what he does. He's going to close the fight, and he stated that, he expects, Errol Spence to be victorious. Not saying that Terence Crawford can't win the fight or that Terence Crawford is not a good fighter. This is what I've been saying, right? It's stylistic matchups, okay? So he's like Keith Thurman, he stated that Terence Crawford is a switch fighter. He has the ability to switch from southpaw to orthodox, but he's not as effective in the orthodox stance as he once was. This is something I've been saying, okay? So he said, but he's very crafty in setting up his opponents. But those opponents that he faced are not on the level of Errol Spence Jr., so he expects Errol Spence to get the victory over over Terence Crawford. And he says that he is more than likely going to have to face somebody in the ranking system, and it could be JARON Boots Ennis, who he has to face in his next fight. So that's interesting because Keith Thurman initially, when asked about fighting JARON Boots Ennis, he stated that he didn't know who JARON Boots Ennis was. Then afterwards, he stated that he knew who JARON Ennis was, and he was a mixture between himself, Floyd Mayweather, and Terence Crawford, okay? So that's high praise. So clear he holds JARON Ennis in high regards. JARON Ennis will be the mandatory challenger. He's already top 2, top 3 in every sanctioned body, so it only makes sense for Keith Thurman to face JARON Ennis to put himself in position to fight for one of those world titles. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.